My name is Clara, and I can still hear the way my Aunt Lorraine's laughter sliced through the thick, smoky air at that family barbecue, sharp and biting like a blade, aimed straight at my heart. Clara, sweetheart, you're still chasing that foolish singing dream of yours, she said, her voice, thick with mockery, loud enough to turn heads, uncles, cousins, even the neighbors hovering near the grill with their paper plates. I was 24, standing there in my worn sundress, clutching a plate of potato salad that wobbled in my shaking hands, and I felt my spirit crumple like a dried flower crushed underfoot. Singing was my lifeline, the one thing that made me feel whole, each note a way to pour out my pain, my joy, my everything, and transform it into something beautiful. But to my family, it was a laughable whim, a pointless pastime, a childish fantasy I should have abandoned long ago. I forced a tight smile, my face hot with shame, and muttered something about still performing at local cafes. The words felt like lead in my mouth, like I was begging for their forgiveness just for being me. It was a balmy May evening in 2022, the kind of night where the Georgia sun lingers painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, and our annual family barbecue was alive in my parents' backyard in Macon. Picnic tables sagged under the weight of plastic cups, greasy platters of ribs and scattered cornbread crumbs, while the air carried the scent of charcoal mingled with the sweet jasmine from Mom's garden. My whole family was there, Dad tending the grill, flipping burgers with a focused frown, Mom fussing over her deviled eggs, arranging them just so my younger brother Jake, tossing a football with the kids, their laughter ringing out. And then there was my cousin Vanessa, perched on a lawn chair like royalty, her presence commanding attention. Vanessa's just been named junior partner at her law firm. My Uncle Ted announced, his voice booming with pride, his chest puffed out, as everyone erupted in applause, their cheers echoing in my ears. At 26, just 2 years my senior, she was their shining star, steady, practical, everything I'd never be. I glanced at her, hoping for a shred of warmth, but she just smirked, sipping her lemonade, her manicured nails catching the fading light like tiny daggers. I'd always known they held us side by side, but that night it felt like a deliberate attack, a silent agreement to keep me in my place. Clara, when are you going to find a real job? Dad asked, his eyes fixed on the sizzling burgers, his tone offhand but loaded with disappointment. Mom joined in, her voice gentler but no less piercing. Honey, singing's sweet, but it won't keep the lights on. Look at Vanessa, she's building a future. I wanted to shout that I was trying, that I poured my heart into every song, that I'd been booking gigs at coffee shops and dive bars, even if the pay barely covered gas and a burger. But my throat tightened, and I just nodded, retreating to the edge of the yard near the old oak tree where I'd climbed as a kid, dreaming of stages and spotlights. I pressed my back against its rough bark, staring up at the stars peeking through the leaves, and felt their words sink deep, heavy as stones. They didn't just doubt me, I could sense their envy, too. The way Aunt Lorraine's eyes sharpened when I sang at last year's Christmas gathering, the way Vanessa steered the conversation away whenever my gigs came up. They resented that I dared to pursue something they couldn't grasp. I grew up in this family, the middle child, always the one with her head in the clouds. Dad was a mechanic, reliable and grounded, fixing cars with a quiet focus. Mom taught 3rd grade, her days a steady rhythm of lesson plans and lunchboxes. They loved me, I knew, but they didn't understand me. When I was 6, I'd sneak into my room, a hairbrush, as my microphone belting out Whitney Houston and Aretha Franklin, until my voice gave out. In high school, I joined the choir, and my teacher, Mrs. Delaney, called my voice a gift like honey mixed with heartbreak. She'd said, her eyes bright with belief. But college came, and a music degree was out of reach. So I studied business, hating every lecture, every spreadsheet. I graduated 2 years ago, took a part-time job at a bookstore, and spent every free moment singing open mic small stages anywhere they'd let me. It wasn't glamorous, but it was my heartbeat. Yet here at the barbecue, surrounded by the people meant to cheer me on, I felt tiny, insignificant, a shadow next to Vanessa's glow. The worst of it was I almost bought into their story. As the night stretched on, I sat on a creaky folding chair poking at my food, their voices swirling around me. Uncle Ted boasting about Vanessa's corner office, Aunt Lorraine chuckling that my singing was cute, like a kid's lemonade stand. Tears stung my eyes, hot and insistent, but I refused to let them fall, refused to let them see me break. I mumbled an excuse about needing a sweater and slipped inside the house, the screen door creaking behind me. In the quiet of my old bedroom, I sank onto the bed, the mattress dipping under me, and stared at the faded posters of Mariah Carey and Alicia Keys, tacked to the walls relics of a younger, braver me. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I fished it out, expecting a text from Jake or Mom. Instead, it was a YouTube notification, a new comment on one of my cover videos. I'd been posting them for months late at night, in my cramped apartment, just me and my secondhand guitar, pouring my soul into songs like At Last and Hallelujah. At first, it was nothing, a few hundred views, a sprinkle of likes. But lately, something was shifting. I opened the app, and my breath hitched. My latest cover of I Will Always Love You had skyrocketed to 500,000 views, 500,000 people. My pulse raced, a fragile spark of hope, igniting in the hollow ache their words had carved. I scrolled through the comments, my fingers trembling, each one a thread pulling me up from the depths. Your voice is pure magic, Clara, one read. Why aren't you a star? Yet another asked. Strangers, people I'd never meet, saw something in me my family couldn't or wouldn't. I wiped my eyes, the tears slipping free now, and whispered to myself, maybe I'm not a fool. But then Aunt Lorraine's laugh drifted through the open window, sharp and mocking, and the pain surged back, a tidal wave of doubt. They didn't know about the views, the comments, the way my voice was touching hearts across the globe. To them, I was still Clara the dreamer, the letdown, the one who'd never match Vanessa's shine. I pulled my knees to my chest, the phone warm in my palm, and wondered if I'd ever be enough for them, for myself. How could I keep going when their scorn felt louder than my song? I sat there, the house quiet, except for the hum of voices outside, and thought back to the girl I used to be, the one who'd stand on that oak tree's lowest branch, singing to the wind, imagining a crowd cheering for me. I'd always believed music could carry me somewhere, lift me beyond the smallness of this town, this family's expectations. But that night, their words clung to me like damp heat. Useless, silly, not enough. I traced the edge of my phone, the comments still glowing on the screen, and felt a tug, a quiet defiance stirring in my chest. I'd been posting those videos for me, for the love of it, but now they were becoming something more, a lifeline, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, I was on the right path. I thought about Mrs. Delaney, her kind eyes, the way she'd pull me aside after choir and say, Clara, your voice can move mountains. Don't let anyone silence it. I hadn't seen her in years, but her belief lingered, a faint echo I clung to. Outside, the barbecue carried on the clink of bottles and bursts of laughter, a stark contrast to the storm in my heart. I stood pacing the worn carpet of my room, my sundress swishing against my knees. I wanted to march out there to shout that they were wrong, that my singing wasn't a joke, that people out there heard me, felt me, but fear held me back, heavy and cold. What if they laughed again? What if they rolled their eyes, dismissed my views as a fluke? I stopped by the window, watching my family in the glow of string lights. Dad wiping his hands on his apron, Mom passing out slices of pie, Vanessa basking in their praise. I felt like an outsider, a ghost in my own story. But those comments, those 500,000 views, they were real. They were mine. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass, my breath fogging the pain, and made a vow to myself, quiet but fierce, I'd keep singing no matter how loud their doubts rang. I'd prove them wrong, even if it broke my heart to try. The fireflies began to flicker in the grass, tiny bursts of light in the growing dark, and I lingered there caught between the hurt and the hope. I didn't know then that the tide was turning, that the pain they heaped on me was fuel for a fire they couldn't imagine. I didn't know a stranger was watching, listening, planning to change everything. I just held my phone, the kind words of faceless fans, a fragile shield against my family's envy, and took a shaky breath. I'd always sung to heal myself, but maybe, just maybe, my voice could heal others too. And maybe that was worth fighting for, even if they couldn't see it yet. Have you ever felt like the people closest to you don't see your worth? Like their doubts drown out your dreams? How do you hold on when it feels like you're singing into the void? I stood by that window in my old bedroom, my forehead still pressed against the cool glass, the faint hum of my family's laughter seeping through like a distant storm. My phone glowed in my hand, the YouTube comments, hundreds of them, now praising my cover of I Will Always Love You, 500,000 views and climbing. Clara, you're a gift to this world. One read and my chest ached, a mix of wonder and disbelief swirling inside me. But Aunt Lorraine's cackle, my dad's offhand real jab, and Mom's gentle cutting look at Vanessa echoed louder, clawing at that fragile spark of hope. I sank back onto the bed, the springs creaking under me, and let the tears come hot and silent, streaking down my cheeks. I felt raw, like my skin had been peeled back, exposing every doubt I'd ever buried. Was I foolish to keep singing? Was I chasing a dream that'd never hold me up? I hugged my arms around myself, the sundress damp with sweat and tears, and let the hurt wash over me, wave after wave, until I was drowning in it. The barbecue noises faded as folks started heading home, car doors slamming, voices trailing off into the Georgia night. I stayed put, too heavy to move my mind, replaying the evening, Uncle Ted's proud grin for Vanessa, her smug sip of lemonade, the way they all nodded like my singing was a childish phase. I'd always known they favored her, but tonight their words felt like a betrayal, a collective shove to push me down. I wiped my face, my hands shaky, and scrolled through more comments. Your voice carried me through my breakup, one said. Clara, you're my inspiration, another wrote. Strangers saw me, really saw me in a way my family never had. But the pain was still there, sharp and relentless, and I wondered if I'd ever outrun their judgment. I wanted to scream, to shatter something, to make them feel the weight of what they'd done to me. Instead, I just sat there small and broken, the fireflies outside, blinking like tiny pleas for me to keep going. The next morning I woke up on that same bed, my eyes puffy, my throat raw. I'd barely slept, my dreams a mess of mocking faces and silent stages. I dragged myself to the kitchen where Mom was washing dishes, the clink of plates loud in the quiet house. You okay, honey? She asked, glancing over her hands sudsy. I nodded, mumbling, just tired, and poured a coffee, the mug warm against my palms. I couldn't tell her how much her words last night had stung, how they'd piled onto years of quiet disappointment. I loved her, her soft curls, her apron stained with years of cooking for us, but her doubt hurt worse than Aunt Lorraine's taunts. I sipped the coffee, bitter on my tongue, and stared out the window at the oak tree, its branches swaying in the breeze. I felt like that tree, rooted, but battered, bending under a storm I couldn't escape. I needed to get out to breathe, to find some piece of myself again. I drove to my tiny apartment in downtown Macon, the 20-minute ride, a blur of green fields and faded billboards. My place was a shoebox peeling paint, a wobbly table, a couch I'd found curbside, but it was mine. I dropped my keys on the counter, the jangle loud in the stillness, and sank onto the couch, my guitar leaning against the wall like a patient friend. I'd bought it for $50 at a pawn shop, its wood scratched but warm, and it had carried me through late nights, heartbreak, and hope. I picked it up, my fingers tracing the strings, and strummed a few chords soft and tentative. The sound filled the room, wrapping around me like a hug, and for the first time since the barbecue, I felt a flicker of calm. I started singing a quiet rendition of Landslide, my voice trembling at first, then growing stronger, each note a release, a way to let the pain drip out of me. I closed my eyes, letting the music hold me, and felt the tears come again, but softer this time, cleansing instead of crushing. That afternoon, I got a text from my old high school friend Maya. "Clara, you free, need coffee, and my favorite singer." I smiled a real one and typed back, "Always free for you." Maya had been my rock since we were 15, her loud laugh and fierce loyalty, a lifeline through high school dramas and college doubts. We met at a little cafe downtown, the kind with mismatched chairs and the smell of burnt espresso. She was already there, her curly hair piled high, her brown eyes bright as she waved me over. "Girl, you look like you've been through it," she said, pushing a latte my way. I laughed a shaky sound and spilled it all the barbecue. Aunt Lorraine's sneer, Dad's words, Mom's comparison. To Vanessa, the way they made me feel small. Maya listened, her face softening, then reached across the table, her hand warm on mine. "Clara, they're wrong. Your voice. It's a light in this world. I've heard you sing heck. I've seen your YouTube numbers. You're not useless. They're just blind." Her words hit me hard, a balm to the wounds still raw from last night. I told her about the 500,000 views, the comments, the strangers who believed in me. Maya's eyes widened and she squealed, "Clara, that's huge. 500,000. You're going viral, girl." I blushed, ducking my head, but her excitement was contagious, lifting me just a little. We talked for hours, the coffee going cold, and she reminded me of the time we'd snuck into the school auditorium at 16. Me singing on the empty stage while she clapped from the seats, both of us dreaming big. "You've got this, Clara," she said, her voice firm. "They don't see your fire, but I do. Keep singing, the world's already listening." I hugged her tight as we parted, her warmth lingering, and drove home feeling lighter, like I'd shed a layer of that heavy doubt. Back in my apartment, I sat cross-legged on the floor, my laptop open, the YouTube page glowing. The views were up to $600,000. Now comments flooding in, "Clara, you made me feel seen. Your voice is my safe place." I read each one, my heart swelling, aching, torn, between the love from strangers and the sting from my family. I grabbed my guitar again, my fingers finding the chords to "Ain't No Way" by Aretha, and sang my voice raw and real, filling the tiny space. I recorded it, my hands shaking as I set up my cheap camera, the light soft from a thrift store lamp. When I uploaded it, I typed a caption. "For anyone who's ever felt invisible, this is for you." I hit post, my pulse racing, and watched the likes tick up slowly. At first, then faster. I wasn't healed, not yet. The hurt from the barbecue still throbbed, a deep bruise in my soul, but I felt a shift, a quiet strength budding inside me. Days turned into weeks, and I threw myself into my music. I booked more gigs, a bar downtown, a farmer's market, even a small wedding, each one a chance to sing, to feel alive. The pay was still meager, barely enough for rent and ramen. But every clap, every smile from the crowd built me back up. I'd come home late, my voice hoarse, my body tired and check. YouTube the views, climbing 700,000, 800,000 salary. Comments poured in, some from people in other countries, saying my songs got them through dark nights. I'd lie in bed staring at the cracked ceiling and think about my family, their envy, their dismissal. It still hurt, a dull ache that wouldn't fade, but Maya's words echoed, "They're blind." I started to wonder if maybe I could do this, if my voice could carry me further than their doubts. I wasn't whole, but I was moving step by shaky step towards something bigger. One night after a gig at a smoky bar, I sat on my couch scrolling through comments when my phone buzzed. An email from a name I didn't know. "Clara, I'm with Harmony Records. Saw your covers. We need to talk." My heart stopped, my breath catching in my throat. A record label me. I read it again, then again, my hands trembling so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Was this real? Was this my chance? I didn't reply. Yet too scared, too stunned. But I felt something ignite inside me. Hope bright and fierce. pushing back the darkness of that barbecue night. I closed my eyes, the memory of Aunt Lorraine's laugh still sharp, but now I had a flicker of something to fight with. I wasn't ready to believe in myself, fully not yet, but I was starting to see a path, a way to rise above their scorn. Have you ever felt broken by the ones who should lift you up? What's the one thing a friend, a dream, a moment that's kept you pushing forward when you wanted to give up? I sat on my lumpy couch, the glow of my laptop screen, casting shadows across my tiny apartment. The email from Harmony Records staring back at me like a dare. Clara, I'm with Harmony Records. Saw your covers. We need to talk. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat, a wild mix of thrill and terror. I read it a dozen times, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, too afraid to type a reply. What if it was a scam? What if I wasn't good enough? The memory of that family barbecue still clung to me. Aunt Lorraine's mocking laugh, Dad's real job jab, Mom's quiet push to be more like Vanessa. Their words were a weight, heavy and cold, pressing down on this fragile new hope. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking, and leaned back, staring at the cracked ceiling. I wanted to believe this could be real, that my voice, my useless singing, could mean something. But doubt was a loud, cruel guest, whispering that I'd fail, that I'd always be the dreamer they laughed at. I didn't sleep much that night, my mind racing torn between the sting of my family's scorn and the strangers online who called my voice a gift. By morning, I was a mess, puffy eyes, tangled hair, a knot in my stomach. I grabbed my coffee, the mug trembling in my grip, and paced my apartment, the floorboards creaking under my bare feet. I kept thinking about Maya, my high school friend, her fierce belief in me, at the cafe a few weeks back. They're blind, Clara. The world's already listening. Her words were a lifeline, and I needed her now. I texted her, emergency coffee, need you. She replied instantly. On my way, girl. I threw on jeans and a faded sweater, grabbed my guitar case out of habit, and headed to our usual spot. The little downtown cafe with its chipped tables and warm, bitter scent of espresso. Maya was there, her curly hair a wild halo, her smile bright as she waved me over. Clara, what's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, pushing a latte my way. I took a deep breath, the steam warming my face, and spilled everything the email from Harmony Records. The way my heart leapt and crashed the fear that my family was right, that I'd never be enough. Maya listened, her brown eyes steady, then leaned forward, her voice firm. Clara, this is it. A record label. That's huge. You've got to reply. They see what I see, your talent, your heart. Don't let your family's nonsense stop you. I bit my lip, the hurt from the barbecue still raw. A bruise that ached with every thought. But what if I mess it up, Maya? What if they hear me and change their mind? She squeezed my hand, her grip warm and sure. You won't. Your voice moves people. Hundreds of thousands already love you. This is your shot. Take it. I drove home, Maya's encouragement buzzing in my chest, a faint light cutting through the fog of doubt. I sat at my wobbly table, opened my laptop, and typed a reply to Harmony Records, my fingers clumsy. Hi, I'm Clara. I'd love to talk. When can we meet? I hit send, my pulse racing, and felt a rush fear. Yes, but also a spark of courage. Days later, they replied, asking for a call. I was a bundle of nerves pacing my apartment, my guitar in hand like a security blanket. When the phone rang, I nearly dropped it. My voice shaky as I answered. The woman Lisa was kind, her tone warm. Clara, your covers are incredible. Raw, emotional, real. We'd love to meet you in Atlanta, see you perform live. I stammered a yes, my heart soaring then sinking. Atlanta was 2 hours away, and I had no car reliable enough. No money for a trip, just my bookstore job and gig cash. But I said I'll be there and hung up my mind spinning. I spent the next week scrambling. My car, a beat-up hatchback, coughed and sputtered, so I borrowed $200 from Maya, promising to pay her back with gig money. She waved it off, saying, "Investing in a star, Clara." I practiced every night, my voice echoing in my apartment, singing hallelujah and at last until my throat ached. I poured every ounce of hurt my family's envy, their taunts into the notes, letting the pain fuel me. My YouTube views kept climbing 900,000 Rs. Now comments flooding in. "Clara, you're my hero. Your voice saved me tonight." Each one chipped away at the weight of that barbecue, building me up piece by piece. I started to feel it, a quiet shift, a belief that maybe I could do this, maybe my singing wasn't silly. But the fear lingered, a shadow that whispered of failure, of my family's laughter if I fell. The day of the Atlanta trip came a muggy June morning in 2022. I packed my guitar, a change of clothes, and a sandwich, my stomach too, nodded for more. The drive was tense, my car rattling, my hands gripping the wheel as I rehearsed in my head. What if they hated me live? What if my voice cracked? I stopped at a gas station, halfway splashing cold water on my face, staring at my reflection, pale, tired, but determined. I thought of Mom's gentle disappointment, Dad's dismissive tone, Aunt Lorraine's sneer, and felt the hurt flare hot and sharp. But then I pictured Maya's smile, the YouTube comments, and whispered to myself, "You've got this, Clara." I got back in the car, turned up an old Aretha Franklin song, and sang along, my voice steadying with every mile. The meeting was in a sleek office, glass walls, and city views so different from my Macon world. Lisa greeted me, her handshake warm, and led me to a small studio, a microphone waiting like a challenge. I set up my guitar, my fingers trembling, and took a breath, the air thick with nerves. "Whenever you're ready, Clara," she said. I closed my eyes, thought of every time I'd been underestimated by my family, by Vanessa's smug glances, and started, "I Will Always Love You." My voice poured out raw and aching, carrying the pain of that barbecue, the hope of those comments, the fight in me. When I finished, the room was quiet. Lisa's eyes wide, a smile breaking across her face. "Clara, that was stunning. We see something special in you." My heart leapt, tears pricking my eyes, but I held them back, knotting my throat too tight to speak. Driving home, the sun dipping low, I felt different, shaky, but stronger. Lisa's words echoed, something special. For so long my family's doubts had drowned me, their envy a chain around my dreams. But now strangers online, Maya, and even a record label saw me, believed in me. I wasn't past the hurt, every taunt still stung, sharp as ever, but I was moving step by trembling step. I stopped at a rest area, the sky a blaze of orange, and checked YouTube. My Ain't No Way cover was at 1 million views. I laughed, a shaky, teary sound, and felt the weight lift just a little. I wasn't there yet, but I was fighting, clawing my way up from the wreckage of their words. Harmony Records wanted another meeting, maybe a demo. I gripped the wheel, my heart racing, and drove into the night, a quiet fire growing inside me. Have you ever been so scared to chase a dream that you almost let it go? What pushed you to take that next step, to fight through the fear and the pain? The drive back from Atlanta felt like a dream, the highway stretching out, under a sky painted orange and purple, my old car rattling but holding steady. Lisa's words from Harmony Records rang in my ears. "Clara, that was stunning. We see something special in you." My heart thumped, a wild mix of joy and disbelief, my hands still trembling on the wheel from the weight of it all. I'd sung my soul out in that sleek studio, pouring every ounce of pain, my family's taunts, Aunt Lorraine's sharp laugh, Mom's quiet push to be like Vanessa, into "I Will Always Love You." For the first time, someone outside my little world, someone who mattered in music, saw me. Not the silly dreamer, not the failure next to my cousin, but me, Clara, with a voice they called special. I wanted to cry, to laugh, to scream into the night, but I just drove the wind whipping through my cracked window, a fragile hope blooming in my chest. Back in my tiny Macon apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, my guitar case propped against the wall like a loyal friend. I checked my phone, my breath catching. My Ain't No Way cover had hit 1 million views. 1 million. Comments flooded in. Clara, you're a force of nature. This got me through my darkest day. I scrolled, tears welling up my heart, swelling with a warmth I hadn't felt in so long. Strangers, thousands of them, heard my pain, my fight, and loved me for it. But the sting of that family barbecue lingered a shadow that wouldn't fade. Aunt Lorraine's sneer, Dad's dismissal, the way they envied my passion and called it useless. I hugged my knees, the hurt still raw, but something was shifting. Lisa's belief, Maya's fierce support, those YouTube numbers. They were bricks building me up, piece by shaky piece. The next morning I woke early, the sun barely peeking through my threadbare curtains. My phone buzzed with an email from Lisa. Clara, we'd love you to record a demo. Come back to Atlanta next week. Bring an original song. An original song. My stomach flipped, nerves and excitement tangling together. I'd scribbled lyrics in notebooks since I was a kid, but I'd never shared them too. Scared they'd be laughed at like everything else. I grabbed my guitar, sat cross-legged on the floor, and strummed my fingers, fumbling at first. I thought of the barbecue, the way their words cut me, and a melody came soft and mournful. Words spilled out, they called me small. Said I'd fall, but my voice will rise above it all. I sang it, my voice breaking, then growing stronger, the notes carrying my hurt, my defiance. Hours slipped by, the sun climbing, and I shaped it into a song. Rise above raw, real mine. I spent days on it, tweaking lyrics, humming melodies, my apartment alive with sound. I'd sing late into the night, my throat scratching my heart, pounding, imagining a studio. A real track, people, hearing my story. Maya came over one evening, pizza box in hand. Her eyes lighting up as I played Rise Above for her. Clara, that's you, your pain, your strength. It's beautiful, she said, hugging me tight. Her belief fueled me, and I practiced more, my voice steadier each time. My bookstore shifts dragged the hours of shelving novels a blur, but gigs kept me going. A coffee shop, a park event, crowds clapping. Some even asking, are you that YouTube girl? I'd blush, nod, and feel a spark, a shift. People were seeing me, not the useless Clara my family painted. The Atlanta trip came fast, a humid July day in 2022. I packed my guitar, my notebook of lyrics, and a little courage, my car, coughing as I drove. I sang Rise Above the whole way, my voice, mingling with the engine's hum, steadying my nerves. At Harmony Records, Lisa greeted me. Her smile warm and led me to a real studio, microphones, soundproof walls. A producer named Sam with a kind nod. Let's hear your original, Clara, Lisa said. I took a breath, my hands sweaty on my guitar, and thought of every doubt, Dad's sigh, Mom's comparison, Aunt Lorraine's cackle. I strummed my voice soft at first, then soaring. They called me small, said I'd fall, but my voice will rise above it all. The room held its breath, and when I finished, Sam whistled. Lisa clapped, her eyes bright. Clara, that's powerful. Let's record it, she said. My heart leapt, tears burning, but I smiled, nodding, a quiet strength settling in. We spent hours in that booth, my voice layering over guitar tracks, Sam tweaking sounds, Lisa guiding me with gentle encouragement. More heart here, Clara, she'd say, and I'd dig deeper, singing until I was hoarse. The pain of my family's envy fueling every note. When we played it back, I barely recognized myself. My voice, rich and raw, filled the speakers, telling my story. We love this, Clara, Lisa said. We're talking contracts soon, maybe a single release. I drove home in a daze, the sky a deep indigo, my mind reeling. A contract, a single. I laughed, a shaky, teary sound, the hurt from my family. Still there, but lighter, like a stone I could carry now. Back home I kept singing, booking more gigs, a bar, a charity event. Crowds growing, some singing along to my covers from YouTube now at 1.2 million views. I posted Rise Above online, just a rough clip, my hands shaking as I typed, wrote this for anyone who's been told they're not enough. The response was wild views, soared comments poured in. Clara, this is my anthem, you're giving me strength. I read them late at night, tears streaming my heart, full. My family didn't know, didn't care maybe, but the world was listening. I still felt the ache of their words, the barbecue a fresh wound, but I was rising step by step. I'd close my eyes, hear Lisa's praise, Maya's cheers, and feel myself changing stronger, braver, a Clara they couldn't break. One night after a gig, I sat on my couch, the room lit by a single lamp, and thought about my journey. I'd been so small that barbecue night, shrinking under their envy, their doubt. But now I was growing Harmony Records' YouTube fans my own song. I wasn't there yet, not free of the pain, but I was fighting my voice, my weapon. I strummed my guitar, humming Rise Above, and felt a fire inside, steady and warm. I didn't need their approval, not yet, but I needed this, my music, my truth. The road was long, the hurt still deep, but I was moving, climbing, becoming someone even I was starting to believe in. Have you ever found strength in something you love, something others doubted? How did it feel to start proving them wrong, even just to yourself? I woke up the next morning, my tiny apartment, bathed in soft July light, the memory of that studio session in Atlanta still alive in my chest. The sound of my own voice, rich raw mine, playing back through Harmony Records speakers, felt like a dream I hadn't dared to imagine. Rise Above, my original song, had poured out of me, carrying every scar from that family barbecue. Aunt Lorraine's biting laugh, Dad's heavy sigh, Mom's quiet nudge to be like Vanessa. Lisa's words, "We're talking contracts soon." Maybe a single release echoed in my mind, a lifeline I clung to as I rolled out of bed, my bare feet hitting the cool floor. I grabbed my coffee mug, the chipped one I'd used since college, and brewed a pot, the bitter scent grounding me. My heart raced a mix of hope and fear. Could this really be happening? Could my useless singing, as they called it, become my victory? I sat at my wobbly table, my laptop open, and checked YouTube. The rough clip of Rise Above I'd posted was exploding 1.5 million views in days. Comments flooding in, "Clara, this song is my fight. You're healing me with every note." I read them, my throat tight, tears pricking my eyes. Strangers across the world heard my pain, my defiance, and wrapped it in love. I wanted to call Mom to tell Dad to show Aunt Lorraine and Vanessa that I was more than their mockery. But the hurt stopped me. Their envy, their dismissal still burned a fire that both wounded and fueled me. I strummed my guitar, the scratched wood warm in my hands, and sang Rise Above again, my voice steady, strong as shield against their doubts. I was changing, growing, and it felt like I was finally breathing after years of holding my breath. A few days later, I drove back to Atlanta, my car sputtering through the humid Georgia heat, my notebook of lyrics and guitar case in the back seat. Lisa met me at Harmony Records, her smile bright, and introduced me to a small team. Sam the producer, a sound engineer named Tara, and a songwriter Ben who nodded warmly. "Clara, Rise Above, has potential, real heart," Lisa said. "Let's polish it, record a proper single." My stomach flipped, nerves buzzing, but I nodded, gripping my guitar like an anchor. We spent hours in the studio, my voice layering over chords. Ben suggesting a softer bridge, Tara tweaking the sound until it soared. I sang until my throat ached, pouring out the pain of that barbecue. The years of being underestimated, the quiet rage at their jealousy. When we played it back, I nearly cried my song. My story sounded like something I'd hear on the radio, powerful and mine. Between studio days, I kept singing gigs at bars, cafes, even a local festival, the crowds growing their claps louder. One night at a dimly lit venue in Macon, a girl in the audience, maybe 18, waited after my set, her eyes shy but bright. "Clara, your YouTube covers got me through my parents' divorce," she said, her voice trembling. "Rise Above, it's like you wrote it for me." I hugged her, my heart, swelling, tears burning. "You're stronger than you know," I whispered, and she smiled, a little light in the dark. Moments like that lifted me, built me, made the sting of my family's words fade just a little. I was touching lives, and it felt bigger than their scorn, bigger than I'd ever dreamed. Lisa called a week later, her voice buzzing through my phone. "Clara, the demo's a hit with the team. We're drafting a contract, $150 $1,000. A single release, maybe an EP if it goes well. I froze the phone, shaking in my hand. $150,000. For my voice, my songs. I stammered a thank you, my mind reeling, and hung up, sinking onto my couch. I laughed a wild, teary sound, then cried the weight of it all, crashing in hope, fear, triumph. I thought of Maya, her fierce belief, the fans online, their love, and felt myself rising stronger than the girl who'd shrunk at that barbecue. My family didn't know, hadn't asked, but I was starting to see. I didn't need their nods to shine. I kept working days blurring into nights. Studio sessions in Atlanta stretched along my voice, refining Rise Above until it gleamed mournful verses. A soaring chorus my heart laid bare. I'd drive home exhausted, the highway dark, singing to keep myself awake, feeling the shift inside me. Gigs piled up, a theater opening, a charity night, people chanting my name, some filming, whispering. That's Clara from YouTube. My covers hit 2 million views, Rise Above, climbing 2. Comments calling me an inspiration. I'd read them curled up in bed, the glow of my phone. A comfort, and feel the hurt from my family, soften, not gone, but lighter. I was building something, a career, a self, out of the ashes of their doubt. One evening, Maya came over, her arms full of takeout, her grin wide. Clara, a $150,000 contract. You're a star, girl. We ate greasy fried rice on my floor, laughing, dreaming out loud, tours, albums, stages. She hugged me, her warmth steadying me, and said, "They tried to dim you, but you're glowing now." I smiled, tears in my eyes, and felt it a strength, a sureness I hadn't known before. I wasn't hiding anymore, wasn't the small, shaky Clara from that barbecue. I was becoming someone new, someone who believed in her voice, even if they didn't. The contract arrived by email, pages of terms I barely understood. But Lisa walked me through it on a call, patient and kind. "Clara, this is a start, $150,000. To record, promote, and release Rise Above. Sign, and we're in this together." My hands shook as I printed it, my pen hovering over the line. I thought of Dad's frown, Mom's gentle push, Aunt Lorraine's laugh, Vanessa's smirk, their envy, their dismissal. Then I thought of the girl at the gig, the YouTube fans, Maya's faith, and signed my name bold and real. I mailed it back, my heart pounding, and felt a weight lift, a fire ignite. I was doing this, really doing it, and no one could call it silly now. Nights after I'd sing in my apartment, my guitar in my lap, the melody of Rise Above filling the space. I was stronger, not whole, yet the pain of my family's words still lingered, a quiet ache, but I was rising. I'd look at my phone, the views ticking up, the comments, a chorus of love, and feel myself grow. I didn't need their approval, not anymore. I had my voice, my fans. A label that believed. I was scared. Yes, what if the single flopped? What if I failed? But I was moving, climbing, becoming. I'd lie in bed, the ceiling cracked but familiar, and dream of stages. Lights a world, hearing my heart. Have you ever taken a leap that scared you to your core? What did it feel like to bet on yourself, to rise above the doubts, and start believing in your own light? I stood in my cramped Macon apartment, the late July heat seeping through the walls, my hands still tingling from signing that Harmony Records contract, $150,000. A single release for Rise Above, and maybe an EP. My heart raced every time I thought of it, a wild pulse of joy and fear, like I was standing on the edge of something vast. I'd done it, bet on myself, on my voice, the one my family called silly at that barbecue. Their envy and doubt, a weight I'd carried for too long. Aunt Lorraine's sharp laugh, Dad's heavy real jab, Mom's quiet push to mirror Vanessa. They still stung raw and deep, but now I had this, a label's belief. Millions of YouTube views, fans who saw me. I set my guitar on the couch, it scratched wood, catching the dim lamplight, and felt a fire inside, steady and bright. I was rising, becoming a Clara they couldn't dim. Days blurred into a whirlwind. I drove to Atlanta, my car, rattling through the sticky, Georgia summer for studio sessions with Lisa, Sam, and Tara. We polished Rise Above My Voice, soaring through the booth, layering over guitar and a soft piano they added for depth. Clara lean into the emotion, hear Sam would say, and I'd close my eyes summoning the pain of that barbecue night, the years of being underestimated, and sing until my throat burned. The playback was magic, my song rich and powerful, a story of hurt and triumph. Lisa grinned. "This is a hit, Clara. We're aiming for a release in August." My chest swelled, tears pricking, but I nodded, a quiet strength anchoring me. I was no longer the girl shrinking in my parents' backyard. I was building something real. Gigs poured in a music hall, a rooftop bar, a festival in a nearby town. Crowds grew their cheers, louder, hands waving phones to capture me. Some shouting Clara from YouTube. One night at a packed venue, a man in his 30s waited, after his eyes kind. "Your song, Rise Above, it got me through losing my job. You're incredible." I hugged him, my heart full, my voice shaky, as I said, "Thank you for hearing me." Moments like that lifted me, made the ache of my family's words fade. YouTube was a storm now. Rise Above at 2.5 million views, comments flooding Clara, "You're my strength. This song is my fight." I'd read them late, curled on my couch, tears streaming, feeling seen, valued in a way my family never offered. I started writing more, my notebook filling with lyrics, songs of doubt, hope, love, all raw and mine. I'd sit on my floor, guitar in my lap, the humid night wrapping around me, and sing, my voice stronger each time. Maya came over, her laugh bright, takeout bags in hand. "Clara, you're glowing," she said, eyes shining. "This contract, these gigs, you're proving them wrong." We talked for hours, dreaming of radio play tours. A life I'd barely dared imagine. Her faith, the fans' love, the label's trust. It built me brick by brick into someone new. The hurt from my family lingered, a dull throb, but I was taller now, standing above their envy, their scorn. One muggy afternoon, Lisa called, her voice buzzing. "Clara, Rise Above is ready. We're dropping it August 15th, digital release, streaming platforms, the works. And we've booked you a launch gig in Atlanta, a big venue." My breath caught my hands shaky. A launch gig streaming. I laughed, a teary wild sound, and said, "I'm ready." I wasn't, not fully fear, whispered of failure, of crowds hating it, but I felt a shift, a sureness growing. I practiced nonstop, my apartment alive with music, my voice ringing bold and free. I'd drive to gigs, sing at cafes, bars, parks, the crowds clapping, some singing my lyrics back. I was changing, stronger, braver, a Clara who believed in herself, even if my family didn't. The release loomed and nerves gnawed at me. I'd lie in bed, the ceiling cracked above, and wonder, would Rise Above flop? Would I let Lisa down the fans myself? But then I'd check YouTube, see the love, the views. 3 million now, and feel the fire flare. I didn't tell my family, couldn't face their doubt, their jealous glances. Mom called once, asking, "How's the bookstore?" "Honey," I mumbled, find my heart sinking. They didn't know about the contract to the single, the way I was rising. I wanted to scream it, to make them see, but I held back, letting my music speak instead. I was enough, contract or not, and that truth was settling in, warm and real. The night before the Atlanta launch gig, I sat with my guitar strumming Rise Above. My voice steady, powerful. I thought of that barbecue, how small I'd felt, how their words cut. Now I had a stage, a song, a chance. I packed my bag, guitar, a simple black dress, my notebook, and drove to Atlanta, the sky, a deep gold, my heart pounding. The venue was big lights, bright, a crowd gathering as I arrived. Lisa hugged me, her eyes warm. "Clara, you've got this. Show them who you are." Backstage I paced, my hands sweaty, my mind racing. I thought of Dad's frown, Aunt Lorraine's cackle, Vanessa's smirk, and felt the hurt flare, then fade. I was here, standing tall, my voice, my strength. I stepped on stage, the lights blinding the crowd, a sea of faces cheering as I gripped my guitar. "Hi, I'm Clara," I said, my voice trembling, then steadying. "This is Rise Above, for anyone who's ever been told they're not enough." I sang my heart pouring out. They called me small, said I'd fall, but my voice will rise above it all. The crowd swayed, some sang along their energy, lifting me. When I finished, they roared claps and whistles, shaking the room. I smiled, tears in my eyes, my chest light. I was winning not just for them, but for me, the girl they'd mocked, the dreamer they'd envied. I played more covers, my voice soaring, and felt myself bloom strong, unshakable. Driving home, the night dark and warm, I laughed a free wild sound. Rise Above was out streaming. Alive my story, my fight reaching the world. I was scared, yes, what if it faded? What if I stumbled? But I was here rising my family's doubts, a distant echo. I didn't need their praise, not anymore. I had my voice, my fans, a label, a path. I was Clara, and I was enough, climbing higher than their words could reach. Have you ever stood on a stage, real or not, and felt yourself grow? What did it take to believe in your worth, to rise above the noise and claim your space? I woke up the morning after the Atlanta launch gig, my body buzzing with a high. I'd never known the roar of the crowd still echoing in my ears. I'd stood on that stage, lights blazing, and sang Rise Above my voice, carrying every scar from that family barbecue. Aunt Lorraine's cruel laugh, Dad's heavy real job sigh, Mom's quiet plea to be like Vanessa. The cheers, the hands, waving the voices, singing my lyrics back. It felt like a dream, but it was real. Rise Above was out live on streaming platforms, and my phone glowed with notifications, views climbing past 3.5 million comments flooding in. Clara, you're our voice. This song is my battle cry. I sat on my couch, my chipped coffee mug warm in my hands, and cried a messy mix of joy and relief. I was winning, rising above their envy, their doubt, and it felt like I'd finally claimed a piece of myself they couldn't touch. The days after the release were a whirlwind, radio stations, local ones. At first picked up Rise Above, my voice crackling through my car speakers as I drove, my heart leaping. Social media buzzed, fans posting videos of themselves, singing my song, their captions raw. Clara, you got me through my worst days. I'd read them, tears streaming, my tiny Macon apartment, feeling too small for the life growing around me. Harmony Records called Lisa's voice bright Clara streams. Are soaring top charts on Spotify, trending online. We're pushing for more gigs, maybe a tour. The word hit me thrilling and terrifying, and I laughed a shaky sound, nodding through the phone. I was scared, what if it all crashed? But I felt strong, a fire burning brighter than my family's scorn. I hadn't told them, not Mom, not Dad, not Aunt Lorraine or Vanessa. The hurt from that barbecue still lingered, a deep ache, and I couldn't face their eyes, their maybe jealous, maybe doubting stares. But life moved fast, gigs piled up, bigger venues, crowds chanting my name. One night a week after the release, I played a club in Atlanta, the room packed, lights low, the air thick with heat and hope. I sang Rise Above my guitar, steady my voice soaring, and the crowd erupted their love, a wave that lifted me. Backstage fans waited, teens, women, even a few guys, eyes bright, telling me my song gave them courage. I hugged them, my heart full, and felt myself grow, the Clara they'd mocked, fading into someone bold, real. Then came the day I'd never imagined. It was late August 2022, a sticky Georgia afternoon, and my parents were hosting another family barbecue, the same kind where they'd torn me down. I almost didn't go, my stomach twisting at the thought of their taunts. But Mom called, her voice soft, Clara, come, we miss you. I hesitated, the contract, the single, the crowds burning in my chest. But I said yes, needing to face them, even if they didn't know. I drove over, my hands sweaty on the wheel, my black dress simple but new, bought with gig money. The backyard was alive, tables piled with ribs, coleslaw, cornbread, the air smoky, jasmine sweet. Dad flipped burgers, Mom arranged plates, and Aunt Lorraine held court, Vanessa at her side. Her law firm success, still their pride. I stepped out, my heart pounding, and they saw me. Clara, there you are, Mom said, hugging me. Her warmth real, but tinged with that old doubt. Aunt Lorraine smirked. still singing Honey Hope. It's paying the bills. Vanessa chuckled, her eyes sharp, and Dad glanced over his brow, furrowed bookstore, still keeping you afloat. I swallowed the hurt, the same old cuts, and forced a smile, my voice tight. I'm doing okay. They didn't know about the $150,000 contract, the streams, the fans. I felt the ache, their envy, and dismissal await, but I stood taller, my strength quiet but mine. I helped Mom with plates, dodging their jabs, my chest tight, waiting for something, anything to shift. Then it happened. A car pulled up, tires crunching on the gravel drive, and a woman stepped out, Lisa from Harmony Records. Her suit crisp, her smile wide. Heads turned, confusion rippling through the yard. She strode toward me, ignoring the stares, and called, Clara, sorry to crash, but we had to find you. My family froze, eyes wide, and I felt my pulse race, my breath shallow. Clara, rise above, is blowing up top 10 on Billboard's emerging chart, streams through the roof. We're offering you $150,000, a contract right now for more singles and EP. She held out papers, her voice loud, proud, and the yard went silent, forks clattering, jaws dropping. I stared, tears burning, my hands shaking as I took the contract, my heart soaring. Aunt Lorraine's face paled, her smirk gone. Vanessa's eyes widened, her lemonade glass trembling. Dad set down his spatula, his mouth open, and Mom stepped closer, her hand on my arm. Her voice a whisper, Clara, is this true? I nodded, tears spilling, my voice steady. Yes, Mom, my singing, my useless dream got me here. I turned to them, all my chest tight but strong. You laughed, doubted me, envied me. But this is mine, my voice, my fight. Aunt Lorraine stammered, Clara, we didn't mean. Vanessa looked away, her cheeks red, and Dad cleared his throat, his eyes soft. Honey, I'm sorry, we were wrong. Mom hugged me, tears in her eyes, whispering, I'm proud, Clara, so proud. I stood there, the contract warm in my hands. The crowd of family quiet, their shock, a victory I'd never dreamed. The hurt still throbbed, years of their words, their jealousy, but their apologies, raw and real, softened it. I looked at Lisa, smiled, and said, I'm in. The yard stayed still, their eyes on me, and I felt it, a face-turn moment, a triumph, my voice humbling them, lifting me. I was Clara, the dreamer, the fighter, and I'd won not just for me, but for every heart that heard my song. Have you ever faced the ones who doubted you and turned their disbelief to awe? How did it feel to stand tall, to let your truth shine, and change the story they told about you? I stood frozen in my parents' backyard, the thick August heat wrapping around me like a heavy cloak, the Harmony Records contract, $150,000 more singles, a possible EP, gripped tightly in my shaking hands. The silence after Lisa's bold announcement hung in the air, thick and charged. The barbecue stilled ribs, forgotten on plates. The smoky scent of charcoal mingling with jasmine, my family's faces etched with disbelief. Aunt Lorraine's expression was ashen, her usual sharp smirk vanished. Vanessa's gaze dropped to the grass, her cheeks flushed red. Dad's spatula dangled uselessly, his jaw slack. Mom's hand rested on my arm, her eyes wet with tears that matched mine. Their apologies rang in my ears. Dad's gruff, we were wrong. Honey, Mom's trembling, I'm so proud. Clara, Aunt Lorraine's faltering. We didn't mean it. The pain from that earlier barbecue, their jealous taunts about my silly singing, throbbed deep, a wound still fresh, but this moment, this triumph belonged to me. I turned to Lisa, her steady smile a lifeline, and said, my voice clear and strong, I'm in. My heart soared, a blaze of fire within, yet doubt swirled. Could I let go of the hurt? Did I even need to? I drove home that night, the Georgia sky, a vast stretch of deep blue stars, twinkling like fireflies dancing in the dark. The contract lay on the passenger seat, a tangible sign of my fight, my voice lifting me beyond their skepticism. I replayed their words in my mind, Dad's weary sighs, Mom's gentle nudges to be like Vanessa, Aunt Lorraine's cutting laughter, Vanessa's smug looks, and the ache twisted a burden I'd hauled for years. But I also saw Mom's tearful gaze, Dad's softened expression, the way they'd finally glimpsed my light. I pulled into my small Macon apartment, the door creaking as I stepped inside and sank onto my worn couch, my trusty guitar leaning nearby like a steadfast companion. I picked it up my fingers, brushing the scratched wood, and strummed softly the chords of Rise Above, filling the quiet space. My voice rose steady at first, then bold, a shield against their past doubts. I felt different, taller, braver, a Clara forged from struggle and victory. The weeks that followed rushed by a storm of sound and motion. Rise Above surged up the charts, its melody crackling from radio speakers' streams, soaring past millions. Spotify, Apple, every platform alive with my song. My phone glowed with YouTube notifications. Comments flooding in, "Clara, you've given me hope. Your voice is my strength." I'd sit, tears rolling down my cheeks, my heart swelling knowing my music reached souls I'd never meet. Harmony Records. Lined up gigs, larger stages, brighter lights, crowds roaring my name, their voices echoing my lyrics back to me, their love a tide that carried me. I poured myself into writing my notebook, brimming with new songs, verses of pain, hope, resilience, all born from my core. Late at night, the air sticky with summer, I'd cradle my guitar on the floor, singing until my throat ached my voice, a thread weaving the girl they'd mocked into the woman I was claiming. One evening, my phone buzzed Mom's name on the screen, her tone soft, uncertain. "Clara, can we sit down? We want to understand, to be there for you." I hesitated, the sting of their doubt flaring, a fire still smoldering, but I replied, "Come by tomorrow." They arrived, Mom, Dad, even Aunt Lorraine, no Vanessa, their faces tight with nerves as they stepped into my cramped apartment. Mom wrapped me in a hug, her embrace warm, familiar. Dad cleared his throat, eyes on the floor. "Clara, we got it wrong," he said, his voice rough. "We didn't see your talent, your drive. We're proud, honey." Aunt Lorraine nodded, her words quiet. "I messed up, sweetheart. Your singing, it's a gift." My chest tightened, tears burning behind my eyes. I wanted to shout, to unleash the years of hurt. How their envy, their sharp words shrank me, made me feel worthless. But their eyes, raw and regretful, softened the edge. "It cut deep," I said, my voice steady, "but I've built this. My voice got me here." Mom sobbed, Dad pulled me close, and I let them. The pain easing, not vanished, but gentler. Forgiveness wasn't easy, not complete. The wound ran deep, a mark I'd bear, but I realized I didn't need to let it go entirely. I had my music, my fans. A road stretching wide, gigs, a tour on the horizon, an EP taking shape. I sang on my heart, in every note, every stage, my voice stronger each time. One night, after a packed show, a young girl approached, maybe 16. Her hands trembling as she handed me a gift, a small, smooth stone. Hand-painted with care, the word "Rise" in bold black. "Clara, your song helped me face my fears," she said, her smile shy, but bright. I clutched the stone, tears welling, and hugged her, my voice thick. "You're amazing." I set the stone on my wobbly table, a quiet symbol, my journey, my battle, a reminder I'd risen from their doubt. Nights later, I sat alone, the stone cool in my palm, my laptop glowing with Rise Above at 5 million streams. I strummed my guitar, my voice starting soft, then climbing, singing for myself, for the fans, for the girl I'd been, at that barbecue shrinking under their jabs. I thought of their laughter, their jealousy, and how I'd turned it into this, a single, a contract, a light for others. I wasn't finished, not fully healed, not perfect, but I was enough. I'd keep rising with or without their applause, my path, open stages, songs, dreams to chase the stone, a steady vow of my resilience. I looked out my window, the night, dark stars piercing the sky, and felt a fragile peace settle in. My worth wasn't theirs to measure, not anymore. It lived in my notes, the hearts I moved, the steps I took. I leaned back, the stone in my hand, and let my voice fill the room, a quiet hum growing bold. I'd sung to heal myself, but now I sang for you, for anyone told they're not enough. The road ahead was uncertain, more songs, bigger stages, risks to face. But I'd walk it the painted stone, my anchor, a sign of a fight. I'd won a life I'd claimed. Maybe forgiveness would come slow and quiet. Or maybe it wouldn't. Either way, I'd rise my voice, a flame they couldn't snuff out carrying me, and maybe you to places we'd never dreamed. Your worth doesn't depend on someone else's validation. Have you found that one thing, a note, a token, a spark, that holds your strength? How will you keep climbing, keep shining when the path twists, and the doubts whisper?